Welcome to the January 11th, 2023 meeting of the Finance Committee of the City Council. Please be advised that FATV is conducting an audio and video recording of this meeting for public broadcast. I ask anyone in the audience who is recording this meeting to please identify themselves for the record now by standing and stating their name and address. Seeing none, at this time I ask that all electronic devices be placed into silent mode. Public comment period. The public has been advised to contact the City Clerk's office regarding any comments of no more than 2 minutes. None have been provided online or through written communication. I invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to please approach the podium, identify yourself by name and address, and identify the agenda item on which you would like to speak, and then you may speak on it for no more than 2 minutes. And since there are nobody other than department heads present, we will move on to our agenda. 003-23, in order that the City of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure of funds from the IC Federal Credit Union gift in the approximate amount of $5,000 for the purpose of said gift, which is to provide heating assistance to city residents. And this heating assistance provided from the $5,000 from IC Federal Credit Union will go to the mayor's office, who will administer this program as the mayor's energy fund through a fuel application process. Councilor Boschman.
I do want to say one thing. I want to, you should be saying thank you to IC Credit Union. I think it's very nice of them to do that, to think about the city of Fitchburg.
I think we're all in agreement that we thank IC Federal for their generosity and supporting the mayor's fuel assistance program for the city of Fitchburg, for the residents of Fitchburg.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the order.
Andy.
All those, if there are no objections, I'll take this in unanimous consent. Seeing none, it's adopted. Next is 004-23. In order that the City of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure of funds from the MEMA Emergency Management Performance Grant in the approximate amount of $20,150 for the purpose of said grant, which is to purchase 2 hazmat suits, 2 gas meters, and 2 battery-powered generators. Chief Suarez.
Good evening, councilors, and thank you all for your time. Is it possible to speak on both at the same time, 423 and 5?
Absolutely. 00523 is an order that the City of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure of funds from the Massachusetts Department of Fire Services Firefighter Safety Equipment Grant in the approximate amount of $24,999 for the purpose of said grant, which is to update the communication base stations located at each of the city's 3 fire stations.
Thank you very much. Yes, so I'm here to respectfully request the appropriation of $20,150 for the purpose of the MEMA grant and $24,999 for the grant from the Department of Fire Services. These grants are reimbursement grants, meaning that the criteria to them is that we buy the equipment. Once we receive that equipment, we'll mail in the paid invoice, and then we'll receive the cost back to us, which will be placed back into the general fund. The MEMA grant will be used to buy 2 portable battery-powered generators, 2 multi-gas meters, and 2 level A suits. These generators are battery-powered. They're portable. We'll be using them for all kinds of investigation scenes. That includes fire, PD, state police. We can also use these during civic events whenever portable power may be needed. We currently don't have 2 portable battery-powered generators at this time. Everything that we have is fuel. So this will be something new for us. The hazmat suits will be used to replace 2 hazmat suits, level A suits that we currently have, but they expired in August of 2022. Those suits are used to make rescues during hazmat situations. And the gas meters will replace 2 frontline meters that are about 10 years old, and they are constantly being placed out of service to be recalibrated. It's just because of the components are so old, and they get used so frequently. The DFS grant, the Department of Fire Service grant, will be used to replace base station radios at all 3 fire stations. These are basically radio stations at each fire station that are they're not mobile. They are fixed at this station, so we can communicate with our fire alarm if we have mutual aid companies coming in. they can use that radio to communicate with our fire alarm or pieces that are on the scene. Again, these base stations are probably close to 20 years old. The components on them are pretty antiquated. We have problems whenever they go down trying to find parts for them. We have a box with some surplus supplies, and those are getting low, and parts are getting hard to find. Luckily, because of these grants, we can buy these new base stations, put them into our stations, and this will also bring us into compliance with Massachusetts statewide communications interoperability plan. So if anybody's got any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Councilor Boschman.
Just one question, because I know you and I talked, so I just want to let the council know. I didn't know about those hazmat suits. I thought you had them for life, like you buy a jacket, and you take care of it. You can wear it for the next 45 years, until you told me that these are AAA or AA or whatever, they're the best you can make, and they wear out. They're only good for a period of time, so I learned that today. See how I learned something? But I do want to ask you one question on the generators.
Sure.
How long does the power generators last for? Say if the power goes out at 5 o'clock at night and it's dark.
Yeah.
And you're working, you wouldn't have any idea how long it lasts. Battery doesn't last long. You have to recharge it.
Yeah, a lot of it depends how much power you're actually pulling from the generator. But general consensus on it, it'll last about 10 hours.
10 hours?
These are 72-volt batteries that they use. So they've got quite a bit of juice to them.
All right, 10 hours. All right, and the second question, don't forget Ward 2, take good care of it. Good ward in the city, the best in the city.
Definitely, Councilor.
Oak Hill.
Yeah.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve 004 and 00523. If there are no objections, I'll take this under unanimous consent. Seeing none, they're both adopted.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, Chief.
00623, in order that there being hereby is transferred from within the sum of $25,500 to be transferred from reserve for other municipal purposes, capital expenses, and credited to information technology expenses, capital improvements, for the purpose of installing drops and conduits at the senior center. And with us this evening on this is Facilities Maintenance Director Carlstadt.
Good evening, councilors. We are moving the Veteran Service Office over to the Armory Building, and we are also providing space as required for the various veteran services groups in the city. Part of that process is we have to upgrade some electrical power, which is a code issue for us right now, and we also have to provide adequate security and connectivity for the new areas we are utilizing. So the current IT situation over there is very bleak. So the IT department, and they had provided you with a document, they are updating the system over there to put us where we need to be in well into the next 10 to 20 years as far as IT service in that building. And in addition to this, we are also, the mayor's chief of staff has procured for no cost to the city a large portion of the furnitures that we need from AIS. So we have a large, there's no cost to us on that. So the $25,000 is mostly for information technology services, new servers, all the cabling. We are going to recable all of the existing second floor. We are going to add Wi-Fi to the Great Hall, so that problem is going to disappear. And we think this is an economical way to make this happen. So we request that you approve the request.
Councilor Boschman.
They already have cable over there, right? Am I right or wrong?
What's existing for connectivity over there is in poor condition. It doesn't support what is existing right there, and it's susceptible to interference and security risks.
What about security risks?
Internet problems,
Hacking, Counselor.
hacking.
Well, you can get hacking anywhere at any time. It's been proven fact.
You can get hacked even more easily at the senior center, apparently. So,
What's wrong with wireless internet over there?
There is none, and what is there is extremely weak, and we have to improve that.
All right. My question, when you say conduits, what do you mean? Conduits put it on the outside of the wall pipe going on the outside? There's no way we can put it inside the wall?
Not in that building, no. It has to be external conduits, has to be done by code for fire protection reasons and other reasons.
Fire protection on cable for cable?
Well, and you're going through walls, you have to seal walls. You can't just have a piece of wire going through a wall. You have to seal it, and you do that with conduit and fire sealants. You can't do it with a piece of wire.
Well, it's funny. Well, I don't want to question it because I didn't know that because I put wires in my house inside the walls.
Sleep with one eye open, Councilman.
All right. I'm not too hack crazy about this 25.5. I'll be quite frank with you. We built a brand new place next door, and now we're moving the veterans out of there, and we're putting them over there. And the whole purpose of us renovating next door was to bring everybody into one house. And now we're moving everybody out of one house. All right.
Counselor, we're not moving everybody. We're moving 2 people from one department who were there before the new location was built. You can speak to the mayor about the reason for why he has decided to move them back. I think logistically, it's also because, in my opinion, I haven't talked to him, that it worked well where it was, and not just for the Veterans Department itself with the move, but I think it's pushing the need that's been long-standing for that facility. As Mr. Carlson said, they don't have any internet connectivity that's strong enough that mirrors all of our other municipal buildings. So, in my opinion, a lot of the work that we're going to be doing there should be done irrespective of the Veterans Department move, but even more so because of the move. So I think a lot of these upgrades should be necessary for the senior center's operations as well, because the senior center itself is going to benefit from this too. This isn't just for the Veterans Office.
That's true. It frees up some space for them. They can utilize some storage space they have. We're moving some things around, and they're going to have much better connectivity in their office.
Right, I mean, they don't even have Wi-Fi, and that's, every municipal building should have Wi-Fi. So I think we're behind the wheel on this one. So, I mean, as to why we're moving a department out of City Hall, simply ask the mayor the rationale for that, or if he's at the meeting next week, I'll personally ask him myself, but it looks like a lot of these upgrades should take place irrespective of that, because they're long overdue. Councilor Zarella?
I will note that the Veterans Department is not quite like most of the other departments in that it has a lot of interface with some of the public veterans services as well. So they don't just need office space, they need space for programs and so forth. And they have spoken to some of us over the last year or so about that need. I don't know if this move will even give them all the space that they need, but it will be a step in the right direction. Whereas I'm sure the offices that they have in City Hall are perfectly adequate to their office work, but you can't really have, veterans coming in and actually having programming of any sort in the 3rd floor of City Hall. It's not really designed for that. So I think this is not a matter of building City Hall and having it not be adequate to the need, but rather that this specific department has needs that are not suited to just office space.
I think you've spurred my memory now of those discussions where I think the logic was things weren't working out for the Veterans Office with the connectivity and the infrastructure for IT, so the mayor moved them to the new City Hall building, and now we're moving them back because of this new upgrade that we're able to have done in the new fiscal year, which will allow them to not only have those connectivity issues solved, but also allow them to fully function as they were before with the added space that they don't have at City Hall for the programming and for the visitation and whatnot. So I believe that this was more of a timing thing with logistics where the Veterans Office would be at City Hall for a temporary period of time for the connectivity needs, and now they're moving back in tandem with these upgrades because now they'll get the connectivity and their space back that they needed previously. So, yes, Council.
I do just have one question on that front. Do we know what the space in City Hall that's currently being utilized by the Veterans Department is going to be repurposed to?
I believe there is an outreach group that is going to be placed in there. I'm not sure exactly what it was. They're at the library right now, and with the library renovations, they needed a place to be. It's a family outreach or something to that.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure.
I think I think it's tied in with the health department.
Okay.
I don't know if it's homelessness outreach services or
Yeah,
family
yeah,
outreach.
something to that effect.
Right, it's something in funding by a grant.
Yeah.
yeah.
And to the veterans, they don't have the privacy in the current building. The City Hall is so open and so visible. And as a veteran, sometimes we need to talk to someone. They don't have a space to do that. They'll have that at the Armory.
Makes sense to me. Motion to, I see Councilor Van Hazinga.
Councilor Van Hazinga, sorry, thank you.
So we have a business in downtown Fitchburg who's establishing a high-speed internet mesh network. I was just wondering if this has been investigated as a possible solution to the connectivity issues.
I can't speak to that. I don't have that information. Trevor would have that information. However, I don't think that would help on interior buildings.
Okay.
Councilor Boschman.
You know, Mike, the only reason why I raised it the way I did is I understand what you're saying, but the thing what we don't realize is that there's really not a lot of parking around the senior center. And so you're putting in a lot of different things in the Armory, but you're taking away from the senior center. And you're taking away from the people that actually need it, the seniors, so they have a place to go, because now they don't have parking. They got to park all over town to get to where they're going. And that I know, I've been there, and you've been there, and there's not a lot of parking. So we're hurting, instead of building out the senior center, we're cramping the senior center where they can't expand and have more activities for all the seniors in the city of Fitchburg, because I know a lot won't go there because of the parking situation. They got to park God knows where and walk down there. And that's the only reason why I brought it up. Thank you.
Councilor
Yield the
Giroux.
floor.
So there are parking issues in that area. Some of them I've been actually looking into a little bit because there are some that I think would be an easy fix. I haven't talked to anyone in City Hall about it yet, so I don't want to give the impression that anyone's holding this up other than me. But it is something that I've been looking into. But I will just say, yes, we want adequate space and parking and programming for our seniors, but our veterans need that too. And right now, they don't have that anywhere in the city. If there is if at some point a separate facility becomes available so that both functions can have their own independent space, that'd be great, but we can't just put the veterans on the back burner. I mean, they deserve our support. And I'm not saying that you think otherwise, Counselor, believe me, I'm not trying to imply that, but, I want to see our seniors have a place to go, but our veterans need a facility, and right now they have nothing.
We have a place right on Bemis Road. Renew Snack.
Councilor, you don't have the floor.
To approve?
Second.
Do you have a question, Councilor Cruz, for Mr. Carlson?
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay. Councilor Cruz?
And how does the staff and those running the senior center feel about this move?
They're accepting of it. They've approved. Jen's on board with this. The Veteran Services was over there previously, and the other veterans groups were there, and then they left for whatever reason. I don't know why. But we are required to provide the veterans groups with a space in the city, in city property. And so this is a good spot for it right now. Long-term, something else may pop up, but right now, this would be a good spot. They're currently renting space. It's inadequate, in my opinion. I went to a meeting one time when Mr. Gizzarella was there, and it's a very unpleasant space, and so this will lift them up a little bit.
I think if the people running the senior center are okay with it and accepting it, I see no reason to not accept it as well. I yield the floor. Thank you.
The two-limit rule apply to committee meetings, two-time rule. Okay. Councilor Boschman.
As much as you don't want me to talk, we're at a committee meeting.
I didn't say I didn't want you to
Well, you were
talk.
asking that question.
No, well, he said it was up to me, and I'm letting you talk, so your point is moot. Go ahead.
My question to you, sir, is will you, since you're the facilitator of all of our city buildings, is the former Manpower of Fox sold yet, that place on Newsnock Road? Is it so?
Counselor, I don't know
It'd be
what
a
this...
perfect idea and location.
Okay, well, that's not up to this committee or Mr. Carlstead.
Well, I'm showing a little stick
Well,
out there so
okay,
you can
but
grab it.
that's a separate discussion period, not for right now. This is
All right.
about upgrading the second floor and actually the entire senior center building with new conduit and IT capability.
Motion to approve.
Second,
Motion made and seconded to approve 00623. If there are no objections, I will take this under unanimous consent. Seeing none, it is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, councilors.
00723, in order that there be and hereby is transferred from within the sum of $100,000 to be transferred from reserve for other municipal purposes, capital expenses, and credited to capital projects, Longjo School boiler replacement for the purpose of paying costs for the replacement of boilers at the Arthur M. Longjo Middle School, including a feasibility study and other costs incidental or related thereto, as detailed in the order. Get my paperwork here. Okay, we have the Director of Finance and Administration, correct? For the public
Yes.
school system?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Jeremy Roach here. Thank you.
Yes, Mr.
Director of
Roach.
Finance Operations, Fitchburg Public Schools. So thank you for the consideration of this. This is a procedural process. We were invited, the Fitchburg Public Schools, City of Fitchburg, by the Mass School Building Authority in October, along with 15 other communities across the state, to participate in the accelerated repair program for Longjo Middle School. This will actually be the second accelerated repair project, and this one would be specifically for the boilers. Part of the process is the cities, the communities do have to approve the schematic design and feasibility study, and this would again be for replacing the 2 boilers that are currently in Longjo. Interestingly, of all the schools that were accepted into or invited into this round of accelerated repair, of which the Mass School Building Authority is not doing this year. It is one of the largest facilities of all the communities that were invited, certainly the largest middle school. So that's essentially it. The boilers have to meet certain criteria of 25 years or older. Our 2 boilers at Longjo certainly do. We do expect to begin with the window and door replacement, another accelerated repair this summer. So that project is moving along. I think the city can anticipate about a 70 to 80% return rate on whatever the project design cost would be, and that's about what we're seeing with the windows and doors.
Mr. Roach, the project, this is just to get an estimate of what it's going to cost as required by MSBA?
Yeah.
And so this work, we're not expecting to get on until next?
2024.
Okay.
Summer 2024. Windows, doors this summer.
Yep.
And this project would be 2024. So again, first step is the design, the feasibility, and then working with the project manager, of which, again, with MSBA projects like this, there are some real criteria that you have to follow. They'll assign us an owner's project manager. They'll assign the designer for this as well.
Does do we have any idea at all, preliminary, what we're looking at here for the 2 boilers?
It's so hard to tell. I mean, if you've been down to the boiler room at Longjo, they are particularly large units. It is a 200,000 square foot building, so pretty comparable to a lot of high schools, honestly, and, obviously, makes sense. Hard to say. To throw a number out of what's in my mind is $2 million, but I really don't know.
That's what the feasibility study is for, but
That's what they'll tell us.
whatever we end up having to pay, we'll likely get reimbursed, like you said, 70 to 80%
80%.
of the
Yep.
costs. Councilor Zarella first.
Thank you. First, I just wanted to thank you for continuing to aggressively pursue these things. I talk to a lot of constituents who Longs Joe is kind of a hobby horse for them. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I just mean it's something that, bugs them and that they tell me bugs them on a frequent basis. And I wish that they were watching some of these meetings to see how aggressively we are attempting to update and improve Longs Joe Middle School. Like you said, this is the second accelerated repair program that we're doing there. Not everyone gets access to that, and we've sunk a lot of city money into it as well, and that's exactly what we should be doing. I wish people would see it, because I don't blame them for being frustrated, but there's so much under the surface, that they don't see because it's not in the actualization phase yet.
Yeah.
But that you and everyone else in the school system are working really hard to get these things up to date and improved for our students. So I appreciate it. And you said 2024 is when we can expect to have the actual installations.
Yes.
Is there, once the windows and doors and the boilers are set, what do you see as sort of the next big thing at Longs Joe?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And quick summary, roof has recently been replaced. The solar array, which has been installed, is just close to being the flip switch on the purchase, the power purchase agreement. So that should go online within the next month, maybe two. Windows, doors, $5 million project, 4.8. Boilers coming in, a massive project. It really is. In terms of additional work that we're looking at doing, and there's other smaller things, ADA ramps, things of this nature. We intend to replace the wood floor in the brickyard, in the gymnasium area. We have a contractor coming in who's looking at the auditorium so we can get that reopened as soon as possible. So plans in place for that. Painting projects, floor replacements. The fire chief had a bunch of guys over there today with us to look at some safety installations. Really appreciate the team there from Fitchburg Fire. So a lot of projects afoot. As we know, with procurement laws and working with MSBA agencies, they can take long. They can take a while. And I understand that concern, too, of sort of impatience and frustration with sort of sometimes the timeline on these. But I can certainly assure the community Longs Joe is a priority. And I think one of the greatest things, too, that wasn't one of the more expensive ones is now with the cupola lit, you can see it from just about anywhere in the city. And that made a huge difference. For someone who's been around the city for a long time, I loved to see that and was glad to see it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we'll all be interested in I know I would be in the auditorium piece, because that's probably the crux of the complaints I get about that school right now. Because
the
it's
students
closed off.
deserve it.
Right.
I mean, the students, the faculty deserve it.
Okay, Councilor Boschman.
It looks like a dungeon. I've been in there. Hey, listen, I got a question. My question to you is this. We're going to put 2 new boilers in.
Yes.
Are we going to check the pipe to transfer the steam or the heat to go up to the 4th floor to make sure you're adequately heated up there? And what happens, are they going to replace some of the old piping going all the way up for the heat upstairs on the 3rd, 4th floor?
I mean, my understanding of this process with a full feasibility study and schematic design, we did have a company come in March of 2022, HVAC consulting group that looked at every building. And so we do have some recommendations for Longs Joe in addition to some of the other schools which we have some plans for. But with respect to this particular project, that feasibility and schematic design is absolutely going to address the boiler, the boiler project, but in and of itself, that should make the entire climate of that building significantly better. And when you couple that with all new windows in the entire facility and the new roof, the expectation is that the climate of that facility will be dramatically improved. In addition to, whatever unit vents or things that we also need to look at doing too.
And the only reason why I asked this question is I remember sitting when we were over there, someplace where we had a big meeting. Remember when we had a big meeting? That was one of the biggest complaints from some of the parents. I think it was up in Memorial.
Yeah.
They had to send their kids with blankets and coats to go to school on the 3rd and 4th floor. And I just figured, me being a homeowner, that if you got a pipe up, I put a new boiler, but the heat's not going upstairs, what good is a new boiler if I can't heat upstairs? And you can say we're going to put all new windows. Well, windows are not the answer because windows are a conductor and they attract the cold. So, and doors make a difference, but then they don't make that much of a difference because I know I put everything energy efficient in my house and I still get a high bills. So I'm more concerned about if you're going to put new boilers, I like to make sure the boilers are going to heat those rooms. I'd rather have the teacher say, take the thermostat, turn it down, than saying, we're cold, and we got to keep our coats on and our sweaters and our gloves.
Yeah. No, and the only thing I'll add to that is this opportunity through MSBA is limited to windows and doors, roofs, and boilers. It's the only thing that the Mass School Building Authority funds. So you are exactly right that there are, and you mentioned it as well, Councilman Zarella, that there are other factors that we need to address in the Longjo facility. Absolutely. We just want to make sure that the boilers must be done, and why not get 70 to 75% of the funding through this great program? And I think, the other things are part of the capital plan as well, but this is a big piece for sure.
I'll make a motion.
I mean, having new windows improves the insulation, improves the heat capture, improves air from coming in from the outside, blocks it. And then the boiler system, I was told by some of the maintenance guys that because of the age of these boilers, they're not very strong or powerful in pushing out the heat. No. So getting it to the 4th floor has been a challenge because of the failures they've had. So a new boiler system in of itself will have more power, this is what they were telling me, to push that heat further up. So it's not really the distribution system, it's the boiler itself is weak. So between the new windows and the new heating system, that should rectify a lot of the problem. I mean, I think we have to understand, too, as long as I've been on the council, Longjo has received the most amount of city funds and state funds in the last decade. I think it's well over 10 million. The roof was almost 3 million. The windows and doors, you said 4.8. Now you add this, you're at 10 million right there just for those three things. So in addition to Crocker Elementary School and the new school and many of the other facilities that we have put money into, the schools remain a high priority of this council whenever we get these requests. But because there's so many of these buildings and they're all in various stages, old and outdated in many cases, sure. You know, we're knocking down one at a time as fast as we can, and wherever the MSBA is involved, we would be foolish not to go after those funds, because if we do not, it's millions and millions more on our end. We might as well get our tax money from the state and bring it back here for these projects. Yes, it will take a longer time, but it'll have better chance of happening sooner than having us do it on our own. So that facility having over 10 million, that needs to be stressed to the public. We have not done anything with that building. There's just so many things that need to be done to it. We're knocking off, in my opinion, the most expensive items.
Right.
And a lot of the smaller things I hope the school department will address internally, or if it needs city funding, I'm sure this council will be glad to accept whatever the mayor puts before us for schools. I know we never hesitate for that. So we're making progress. But I want to say, prior to the last decade, nothing's been done with that building.
Yeah.
Nothing. So we're finally starting to make inroads. So by 2024, with the new heating system, the new roof, and the new windows and doors, it also improves the facade of the facility, makes it look more appealing. You see South Street Elementary School, they had new windows and doors put in a few years ago. It looks a lot nicer. So, bit by bit, we're gaining some momentum here. Councilor Zarella.
A couple things. One is I just want to remind people that larger buildings don't have the same thermal dynamics as smaller buildings, residential buildings. In a residential home, it's true, you can get some additional heat efficiency by putting in new windows or whatever, but it's not going to make a huge difference. In a very large building with a ton of windows, particularly when a lot of them are older and probably not even fully airtight at this point, much less, heat resistant and all of that, it makes a much larger difference. I also want to note, yes, like the chair said, Longsjo has a lot of challenges. It has for a long time. Just to put it in perspective, though, I had the privilege of going to Worcester Academy for high school. For those who don't know, it's a private high school. I see Councillor Boschman doing the money symbol with his hands. Yes, they have some pretty big endowments. The reason I'm mentioning that is because they also have very old buildings. And I remember for about a quarter while I was at Worcester Academy, there were some rooms in one of those buildings that every student knew, if you got a class in these rooms, bring your coat. Because even at an institution like that, it can take a while to update these old buildings, and there are heating issues. Yeah. There's only so much you can do so fast with the old buildings. I mention that because, if it's an issue for a place like Worcester Academy, then it's unreasonable to expect that it won't be an issue at some point in Fitchburg. And I think we're doing the very best we can to deal with it. And I think that it's certainly not unreasonable for students or parents to be frustrated by it. But I think that it's important that those students and parents understand that the city is taking active steps to improve the situation, and that it isn't an issue of the city being negligent or in dereliction of our duties or anything. It's just a fact of having a very old building. Yeah. That's what happens. And I would like to make a motion to approve.
Second?
I will
withdraw my motion.
Would like to speak.
Councilor Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be quicker next time to get my hand raised. Yeah, I think it's important. Boiler is one of those things that, you don't see until the kids have to put their jackets on, and then it's a huge problem. It's like the water, and you're paying for our water and things of that nature. I do want to just ask, so because the MSBA is involved, and they will cover to 70 to 80% of the cost or whatever it ends up being, is it safe to assume that their criteria for the quality of work that needs to be done is very stringent, very strict?
Yes. Yeah, extremely. Part of being in an accelerated repair, and even with the Crocker Elementary project, is you do have to work with owner's project manager. Those are vetted by the MSBA board. They have to have extremely high ratings in the organizations that rate them. It's DCAM, in Massachusetts is one of them. It's a division of capital asset management maintenance. In addition, anyone that comes in to do the schematic design, architects of some sort, the engineers, would also have to meet those very high criteria. And then the items that are invested, so the windows, for example, and the boilers have to be of a certain very high quality. I mean, the windows alone, window projects meet the criteria for those are 35 years or older, doors 35 years or older. And the Longsjo ones are much older than that. Per the window expert that MSBA has assigned to that project, and I'm sorry to digress to this one, but his own comments around around the replacement of all those windows with now brand-new, modern, high-end, custom-made windows is going to make a significant difference in a building that he described as one of the best constructed schools he had ever seen. And this is a guy who, from Mount Vernon Group, who does this all the time. So I do believe that the building bones are there really aren't many schools quite like it. It's a phenomenal building. And this kind of investment, you know, again, there's other aesthetics that need to be improved and other areas that have to be addressed in terms of, you know, classroom comfort and so forth. But I do believe this project, you know, with the boilers is also going to add to making Longshore a sustainable building for another 50 years.
Mm-hmm. And do we know the lifespan of the boilers, what that'll be?
Well, they're at least 25 years. So the consideration for projects of this type is that, again, for boilers, the minimum, so if you have a boiler that's system 24 years old, you can't even apply. You can't even apply for replacement. So the expectation then for as I understand it, working with MSBA on these projects, is that anything that's replaced is going to last in that time frame.
That's good.
You know, with proper maintenance plans and all of that, of course.
So we're not just going to the lowest bidder, as sometimes goes around.
There is a bidding process, and, you know, oftentimes it is lowest, but any kind of contractor that bids on these types of projects have to be vetted through a pre-qualification process that's very stringent. And again, they have to have the highest ratings from the various agencies that oversee the type of public work that they do.
Thank you. Motion to approve.
Second. Oh,
I rescind my motion.
Council Boschman.
One question. I want to point out to you something. You say something very important. And we built right up the street on Ashby State Road, Fitchburg High School.
Yes.
Brand new building.
Spent a lot of time over there.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I know you're your principal. MSP was involved in that because we got so much money from that. Less than 15 years, we had to replace the boilers, if I'm not mistaken, before I came on this council, because I remember Councilor Di Natale's father was so upset with the whole thing, the things in the last 15 years. So you can do all the specs you want. My big thing is, are we willing to invest top-end money to get the proper boilers? And I keep on going back from the boilers to the place where it brings the heat. Because what good is the boilers if you can't do nothing with the heat for the next 6 years? Really, tell me the truth. What good is it? It's like putting in my house. If I can't heat the second floor, but I put a Siemens boiler in, but it doesn't bring the heat upstairs, and that's a top-end boiler, what good is it?
I'd only say that we were one of only 16 communities invited into this round for accelerated repairs, and many more applied. In the budget that there, you know, the estimates for the budget for this coming year for, you know, Chapter 70, the school funding mechanism, is MSBA would be funded at well over $1 billion. So there is a significant amount of money that is going to be invested into those 16 communities. And so you make an absolutely accurate statement around the other mechanisms that are part of that HVAC system, of the heating system and the climate system in your building, have to be of a certain quality as well. In terms of this particular one, though, I do know that what the City of Fitchburg students, faculty, and residents can expect is very high-quality boilers that will be a big investment into that building moving forward.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, may I just address him? Don't get me wrong, I'm not finding fault with the MSBA. I'm finding fault that we always say the same thing, we want the highest quality,
Yeah.
but yet, in the long run, at the bottom line, if you only get this much money, you're not going to get the highest quality. The prime example is Fitzroy High School.
Yeah.
And what was it, 13, 14 years, if I'm not mistaken? Councilor Di Natale, you were there, you sat on it. I was on here because your father was really upset. And I was upset. The things in the last 14 years.
You mean the mayor was upset?
Your dad,
Oh, okay.
yes, the mayor.
Yes, my dad, yes.
What do you want me to say?
Yeah, and I can't speak to that one specifically. I know that
Pittsburgh
they,
High School was built in 1999.
yeah.
It's 23 years old now. Was anyone on the council or the school committee when that took place? No. So maybe we've gotten smarter. I haven't seen any issues like that and anything else we've put in since the early 2000, since 2008. I have no knowledge of what went into that facility, who did it, what the pitfalls were, yet we keep going back to it. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. I don't have any information on it. So I am looking forward and looking at this. Point is taken, Counselor, but you're making points in a room full of people that had nothing to do with it.
I understand, but I'm
So
not
I don't-
trying
I don't
to...
know.
I'm just trying to address the young man of standing up there at the podium.
That's the
But I-
first time I've
He
heard
has-
that in a
he has-
while.
He has already stated multiple times the rigorous vetting process that these contractors go through with the state procurement laws, and the fact that it has to meet certain criteria for us to actually qualify for these funds. I mean, we can't see into the future, but what we can do, as he said, is what we go with has to meet those long-term life expectancy guidelines. I don't believe we did that 23 years ago. I don't even know if MSBA was involved.
Oh, yes, they were.
23 years ago. Well, it was a $38 million project, but irrespective of that, I don't know what it has to do with this.
Oh,
25 years or more, that's the requirement, and we're going to be held to that requirement. I mean, if something happens 15 years from now, I'm not going to guess if that's going to happen. It's 2023. I don't know what's going to happen in 2040. All right? I'm not going to let one example cast a cloud of suspicion over every other project we do now. Okay? Because I have no knowledge of what went into that facility and what the logistics were or the design schematics. None. So the fact is, Longshore needs a new boiler system, and that's what this is going to do. So I don't really get the points made. We need to put a new heating system in there, period.
I'm not disputing that. I'm only asking a question, and I expect nothing but the best and high quality. That's all I'm saying to him.
Yeah.
So he knows where I'm
Well,
coming
a
from.
lot of what they're going to be going through is heavily regulated. So there may be some things we want to do that we can't do. All right? So what we can do is ensure we follow the rigorous vetting process, or else we don't get the money. So that's it for me. Councilor Zarella.
Thank you. On those issues, 2 points. First is simply that we need to remember that when we're working with the MSBA, the amount of money that gets invested in it and the ultimate design choices and whatnot aren't really up to us. We can't, if they say this is the model we are willing to pay for, we can't say, well, that's not the top of the line model, so we don't have the amount of cash in our budget to just turn around and supplement the MSBA and say, well, you want to pay for $2 million worth of boiler work, we want to pay for $5 million. If you can, if any of us can find $3 million extra in the budget, please mention it before next budget season. But the other thing is, as far as the heat delivery and so forth, I don't know what the total scope of work is for this project. I imagine that will be worked out in the feasibility study. But we've heard a lot about schematic design and everything, and I can only imagine that a competent designer who's assessing the boiler needs for the building will be assessing what the existing plumbing situation is and selecting a boiler that will be adequate to that task. If they were to just decide what boiler to recommend to us without considering the needs of getting heat up 4 floors and so on, they wouldn't be doing their jobs and they wouldn't make it to this high level of certification and so forth. I've worked with good, just on a personal level, I've worked with good contractors, I've worked with bad contractors. The ones who are the bad contractors aren't going to be making it into the pool for an MSBA project, or aren't going to stay there very long.
Right.
So I also would certainly hope and expect that all of this will be done to top quality standards, but I don't have any concerns on that front. I'm quite certain that that will be the case.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve 007-23. If there are no objections, I'll take this under unanimous consent. Seeing
Thank you
none.
very much. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you.
Same to you. Thank you.
00823, in order that there be is transferred from within the sum of $700,000 to be transferred from employee benefits, health insurance, and credit to school expenses. The mayor's letter to Auditor Brooks states that this transfer is to reimburse the school department for savings in school indirect charges accrued because of the 1-month premium holiday declared in October of 2022. With this transfer, school funding is expected to exceed net school spending requirements for fiscal year '22. Mr. Brooks, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, that pretty much says that the city granted a premium holiday in October, so the indirect costs for this, from the city are less, and the funds would need to be transferred over to the school department for their spending.
Council Boschman?
Council Chair, did I hear you correctly? And Calvin Brooks, is that true? That we exceeded school spending? Exceeded?
Yes, I'm not saying how much we exceeded, but yes.
Well, we still exceeded. Mr. Shalfo, do you hear us? We exceeded.
Mr. Roach.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So Shalfo is his...
Sorry. Thank you. Make a motion.
Second.
A motion
Sorry
made
about
and
that.
seconded to accept 008-23. If there are no objections, I'll take this under unanimous consent. Seeing none, it passes. 009-23, in order that there be and hereby is appropriated the sum of $258,052.49 from reserve for appropriation, PEG access, and credited to information technology franchise fees for the purpose of paying FATV for franchise fees received during the second and third quarters of 2022. A letter here from IT manager Trevor Bonilla states as follows. The city has recently received the 2022 second and third quarters franchise fees payments from Verizon in the amount of $99,404.16 and from Comcast in the amount of $158,648.33. Per our contract with FATV, these funds should be sent to them to pay for general operating costs. Therefore, I request that the total be appropriated from PEG access and cable funds and credited to information technology franchise fee account. These funds will be added to the current amount of $136,206, which we received for 2022 quarter one. Councilor Zarella.
Just to confirm, is this is relative to the change that we just made this past year, where this is money that
Yes.
previously would have just been going directly to FATV anyway. We just have to take this one extra step of transferring it for legal reasons.
Correct. The recent changes to state law, I want to say 18 months ago, required that the municipality serves as the conduit for the cable access that serves that community, I believe for auditing purposes. And so Comcast and Verizon send the city of Fitchburg the checks, gets deposited in the IT department's PEG budget, and then there's a straight transfer, a one-for-one to FATV's operating expenses. So it's just another layer of bureaucracy that the state requires us to put this through.
that's what government does sometimes.
Councilor Boschman?
The only thing I can say, I'm going to vote for this. I'm not giving anybody a hard time, but I really felt that IT should be here if there was any questions to be asked.
And if I could just say, I think Mr. Bonilla had planned to be here. He is sick.
Oh, he's sick?
Yep.
All right, then I give him the excuse. All right.
We've already approved the first quarter transfer where he was present, and the changes that Councilor Zarella mentioned, we implemented. We had no choice but to implement. So I think Mr. Bonilla's letter is sufficient. I know there may be questions. I don't really know. I may get in trouble saying I don't know what kind of questions were anticipated for tonight. given that this is straight adherence to state law, and we've already done this already. So this is the second and third quarters. I mean, that's why I wasn't pressing it. Councilor Zarella?
Yeah, that's why I mentioned what I did, to make sure that I was understanding it correctly as well, because given the nature of this transfer, given that it is just purely administrative, has nothing to do with policy whatsoever, we're not really making any decision here. We're just taking a mandatory vote to do a thing that we already committed to do, and that we had been effectively doing for years and years and years prior, just without the money actually parking in the city accounts first. I don't see that there's really anything that the IT department would have to say on the matter. This is just a bog standard arrangement.
It's really FATV's money.
Yeah, I mean, it's their money. We just have a legal obligation to sort of pass it through us first.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve 00923. If there are no objections, I'll take this on unanimous consent. Seeing none, passes. 01023, in order that there be and hereby is appropriated the sum of $350,000 to be charged against available funds and credited to the stabilization fund. If approved, this appropriation will increase the balance in the stabilization fund to $8.35 million, which is slightly more than 5.5% of the FY23 general fund operating budget. And that's important to note, as the state DOR recommends strongly that municipalities keep in their stabilization funds a minimum of 5% of their total operating budget, general fund budget. This is the standard $350 that the mayor has always appropriated at one of the first things out of free cash once certified. This is the same amount he's been putting in the last 6 or 7 years. Councilor Boschman.
Mr. Auditor, Kelvin, one quick question for you. I noticed on your thing after I read it that we meet the requirements for 8.3 million or 8.5 million. I hope that we just don't stop giving 350,000 or 400,000 a year. I hope that goes higher, to use this as like a piggy bank, so in case we have something, even if it goes up to about $15 million, I like to see that happen. You know, I just don't want to stop. I like to have extra cash in case we have some kind of an emergency that comes up and we can use it. Because we get a one-time deal. So I just wanted the present auditor to know how I feel about it. So this way here, if he decides to stay longer, he knows where I'm coming from.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to approve 01023. If there are no objections, I will take this on unanimous consent. Seeing none, passes. 01123, order that there be and hereby is appropriated the sum of $250,000 to be charged against available funds and credited to other post-employment benefits OPEB trust fund. With this allotment, if approved, this would bring the balance in the trust fund to approximately $2.464 million. And again, like the last order, this has been the standard investment from the mayor out of free cash to the council throughout his tenure annually, the $250. And this trust fund was established in the prior administration in 2012 to start to put money aside for our large unfunded liability in OPEB, which every community in Massachusetts has a sizable balance in. So, but we're one of the few communities that has a trust fund that we're putting money bit by bit into for future health insurance costs whenever we may need to utilize it. And this is something that our actuaries look favorably upon as well.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve 01123. If there are no objections, I'll take this on unanimous consent. Seeing none, it's adopted. Last item is 01223. In order that there be and is appropriated the sum, order that there be and hereby is appropriated the sum of $27,500 to be charged against available funds and credited to reserve for other municipal purposes, capital expenses. The mayor's letter to the auditor states that these funds will be used to replace reserve funds transferred out earlier in the fiscal year for operating costs. At the time, free cash had not been certified. So it's just replenishing the budgeted reserve for other municipal purposes capital expenses account.
Correct.
Is there any reason for the 27.5? Have we gone over it?
No,
Or-
among the spending that was out of that account was $27,500 for the law department. There
Before
were
free cash
expenses
was
Before
cert-
free cash was
okay.
certified.
So he's-
We had a need to fund that,
We're making it whole.
so we're just
Yep.
returning it. Correct.
Okay. That was for one of the settlements, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
That we had recently. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Council Boschman.
One question. How much money do we have in that fund? I'm looking on here, I didn't see it on here.
Reserved for other municipal purposes?
Yeah.
Oh, I just got the status reports. I should
Counselor,
have this
if
by
you
memory.
dropped by to see me today, I would have told you.
Well, I told you, I had to take my wife.
Counselor, I would direct you to, I don't have my computer with me, on the status report, the December budget reports that Calvin's office just sent us 3 days ago?
Yeah, I
Monday
saw
or
that.
Tuesday? In the operating budget attachment, it's literally like the last, near the very end, probably the third or fourth page from the very bottom is where that account is. That gives you what the balance is currently. I just can't think of what it is off the top of my head. You can either ask him on your own time or look at that report that we just got. It's in there. It's at the very bottom. I want to say the third or fourth page prior to the end.
I'll call him tomorrow.
It's there. So,
Motion to approve.
Second.
motion made and seconded to approve. If there are no objections, I'll take this on unanimous consent.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Seeing none, it is approved.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. If there are no objections, we are adjourned. Thank you.